Welcome to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Jesse Green.
Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist podcast. Jesse Green here for another episode of the show. And today we are talking about how to be unstoppable, how to develop that inner strength, that self-mastery to be able to achieve the things you want to achieve in your life and everything beyond. Now, my guest today is Robert Owens, who's been described as the fittest and most mentally tough 71-year-old on the planet. And that description was given to him by Mark Devine from SEALFIT and equally Joe Senna, who is the founder of the Spartan Race. And when we talk to Robert today, you're going to hear about his life story, some of the challenges he's been on, such as the 777, the 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days, how he's rode across the Atlantic, and the lessons he's learned from that. And we're going to talk about how to develop that inner strength, that mental toughness to be able to get through anything that life throws at you. We're going to talk a lot about how some people mature differently to others and how taking responsibility for your own thinking is going to be the key to set you on a path to greatness. Now, Robert shares some really wonderful strategies and tactics, as well as some epic stories about the adventures he's had, and put them in a business context for you. So many pearls of wisdom, so many gold nuggets. This is a podcast I hope you play to yourself once a month, because I think the lessons in here are so important that if we can embody these lessons and take them in and live them, then we're going to be able to see exponential growth of your business. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of hyperbole, but I really believe that for the practice to grow, first we must grow. And this episode is all about personal growth. This episode is all about becoming the best version of ourselves that we can be so that we can achieve to our maximum potential. I know that you're going to love this episode. I certainly loved recording it. In fact, this is the second time I recorded because we had a bit of a recording glitch the first time. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to come back and talk to Robert and explore a few things deeper. Have a pen and paper handy because there is so much gold in here. And as I said, you're going to want to play this one a few times. So without any further ado, here's Robert Hamilton Owens. Robert Owens, thank you so much for coming to the Savvy Dentist podcast. It's wonderful to have you here. How's things in California today, my friend?
It's a bright day. It's a fun day. I started off early this morning on the water at 6 a.m. Yeah, I coach crew, the big long boats you row in the Olympics.
Yep.
I'm the mental coach for the kids. So wow. I sit with the coach in the launch, and he does the yelling at them and stuff. Then he says, "What do you see?" And I say to him, "This is what I see as I look at these young men. I look at how they breathe, where they use their mouth, and I talk to them about their minds being locked in and focused." So it's really fun to work with this group of young men that are immature and say to them, "Can you focus now? Can you stay locked in? And can you get in the flow state?" And all 8 of you breathe together and move together, and it's one. And so it's really fun in the morning to take these kids and then say, "How's your homework?" And you're still eligible, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then help the coach.
Just for reference, ladies and gents, this is our second re-recording, our first re-recording, our second attempt at this podcast, because yours truly made a bit of a glitch in the first instance. So I'm really grateful to have this opportunity, because when we recorded the first time, there were so many pearls of wisdom, so many nuggets of gold, and I've got all my notes here, and I thought I'm going to go a little bit deeper on a few things. But Robert, just by way of introduction, you have recently completed an incredible challenge. You have been on the water yourself. You rowed across the Atlantic. And I'm just wondering if we can, while we're talking about rowing, can we just talk a little bit about that? Because it takes a massive commitment to do that. And might I say, and I say this with in a really positive sense, a degree of not quite insanity, but there's got to be a strong why to want to do that. And I'm just curious to understand what prompted you to do that, because the average person would be scratching their head going, "Why?"
I always like to experiment on myself. I like to think, "What if?" And a lot of people use that expression, but what if at whatever age you could do that, or who could do that? And so I like to be the guinea pig to test myself. So it's all about the journey. It's not about the accomplishment. It's the training beforehand, and it's getting your mind right. I'm a mental coach, so I teach special ops guys on mental focus and resiliency, mental toughness, those kind of things. And I thought, when I heard about this thing, well, what better way for me to practice what I teach then to go out and do this 43-day event that you get. The longest sleep I had was an hour and 45 minutes in 43 days, doing 3,000 miles or 5,000 kilometers. And so I wanted to test myself, and I wanted to see if the big four works, and I wanted to see if at my age, of course I was the oldest guy, and now I'm the oldest American to have ever rode across the Atlantic. People said you can't do it, you're too old, or blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, that's a great gathering of negatives that I think I'd like to try and see if I can do that. And it was the experiment that was fun to do. And so I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. It was a handful. You have the physical side, you have the mental side, and then you have the relationship side or the team side. And any of those can be difficult. And so the most difficult for this one was the team side, because we were teammates, but we weren't a team. We're all in it for different reasons. And I was the only American on the team. All the rest were Europeans. And they just wanted to row the Atlantic, but getting along was easy in the bar or a pub beforehand. But once the pressure hits, those 3-story waves start breaking on top of you, and it's pitch black at 2 a.m, and you're getting knocked out of the boat from waves you can just hear coming, but you can't see. You get people with big eyes, and there's only 3 in the boat that have been on the ocean before. The rest were all lake and reservoir, river type Olympic rowers. And the swells come, big waves, white caps, winds blowing. It got their attention, and it caused people's nerves to become frayed, and at times they turned on each other. And like, what are you doing? Or why are you late? Or don't eat that. Or I'm eating that. Or the things that happen when you're on your edge. You're in that edgy place of not enough sleep, really tired, body's hurting, and you don't have bandwidth to be gracious. And so that was the most difficult. The mental side was fun because I got to practice my way of mini goal, getting through my the first 20 days and the second 20 days. And then the physical side, I trained for a long time rowing and clean and jerk and snatch and a lot of lower back, glute, hips work. And that was probably the easiest part, the physical side. The mental and the relationship side was difficult.
And that's really, in some ways, going to sound counterintuitive to a lot of people, because it is obviously clearly a physical challenge. And most people, when they hear about that challenge, they think of the physicality of what you're doing, which clearly was significant and substantial. But perhaps not many people would intuitively think about the team challenges and how we respond under pressure and so on and so forth. I'd like to just explore that a little bit, because you said something I think is really important, which you said, when our bandwidth is kind of used up, we don't have the space to be gracious. And I think that, obviously you saw that in the context of the transatlantic crossing, but that seems to be something that happens in day-to-day life as well. And so I wondered if we could talk for a moment a little bit about maintaining bandwidth, perhaps growing bandwidth, so that we can remain gracious, because I think a state of grace and being gracious in life is a really lovely quality. And one of the things, having spoken to you a couple of times now, is you've got what I would call almost an unflappable nature, and nothing seems to ruffle you. Now, of course, I'm sure you have your days like the rest of us, you're human, but could we just talk a little bit about the bandwidth question?
And this is all the people that are listening, think on this. Most people don't think about their thinking. Most people just think. And when people just think, they think oftentimes urged on by their emotions. And so many people don't know that the way they have their tone of voice, or the way they move forward, or the way that they body language is emotionally caused. And so if you're just doing what comes natural without any restraints or training or awareness of how you're coming off, then you just act out. You just do whatever you do, what my dad did, my mom did, what my culture does, my blah, blah, blah. And so bandwidth comes when you've studied what is the right way to act and what is the wrong way to act. And when you have watched yourself and caught yourself or not caught yourself acting those ways over a period of time. And so, I hate to say I'm sorry. So
Yes.
I get real tired of saying, you're right, I'm sorry. Or I'm sorry I raised my voice. Or I'm sorry I looked at you so intensely. Or I'm sorry that I acted like I wanted to kill you or take your head off. So in order to not have to say you're sorry, I started working on, if you don't mess up, you don't have to say you're sorry. So I started working on myself to see if I could be better. And my kids helped me, my 5 kids. Hey, Dad, my wife would help me. Where'd that come from, And so I just began to do a self-process over the years of, I want to be a better guy, better man, nicer man, gracious man, kind man. There's another man inside me that doesn't want to be that. And he leak, road rage, or whatever it may be. There's the person that we are, and there's the person that we hold in place that doesn't leak sometimes. And so I've been working on self-development for a long time to be kinder. So when I can be flappable, but then when I study about my thinking, I try to understand that there is emotional immaturity and there's mental immaturity. And people oftentimes, all of us in some degree, or many people more than others, are really emotionally immature. And they just live on the edge of their emotions. How do I feel?
Yes.
Who cares? Do what's right. There's people who feel their way through life, and there are people who do the right thing before they feel or whether they feel. So there's people of convictions and there's people of feelings or emotions. And what we teach people is, if you do what's right, you'll feel good. But if you're waiting to feel good, to do good, you may be waiting a long time.
Yeah.
So I may not feel married, but I'm married.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Which is, I'll be married when I feel like it, So I work on that, and I work with young men and young women in special ops and in athletes about getting their act together and stop acting immature. In the special ops community, we cannot take an immature 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old male and spend $2 to $3 million on them to have them screw up by doing something stupid.
Yeah.
So we say to them, we cannot allow you to stay mentally and emotionally immature if you want to be with us, because you're going to make a mistake and we're going to lose all this money that we spent on you because you're going to do something stupid. So we're going to teach you how to grow up. And that crosses ethnic lines and geographical lines. I don't care what's happened as an Italian or a Cuban or whatever you are. Here, that does not go. And so we just retrain them, neuroplasticity, get their mind to think right, respond right, help them grow up. And that works with civilians as well.
I think that's really, really important to understand that neuroplasticity part as well, because I know that some people listening might go, well, that's great for the young men and women. Great that they're getting that opportunity, but I'm a 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old person. Is it too late for me? And I think the answer is clearly no, and that neuroplasticity and being able to make changes is really critically important. So I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you around that...
Let me make a comment on that.
Yeah.
So I'm rolling across the Atlantic, and these guys are throwing water bottles at each other.
Oh, really? That bad?
Oh, yeah. They're cussing each other out.
Oh,
wow. Almost going to blows, couple guys. Why are you doing this? All this stuff, testosterone. And so the longer that I go across the Atlantic, the quieter I get. And they all say to me, because we have 4 shifts, you row 3 and you're off 3. So 4 times a day, 2 in the daytime, 2 at nighttime, you're rowing for 3 hours. And I get quiet, and they all say to me, why are you so quiet? And I say, because I'm thinking about my thinking. Why? Because I want to think right in this situation right now with these waves and with you and what we're going to go through the next 4 hours. I want to think right. And I say to them, do you? And they go, what does that mean? Because I just think what I think. Whatever happens, I think. I'm not in control. My brain is in control of me versus me being in control of my brain.
But curiously, did anyone ask you to explain or elaborate further on that? Did anyone kind of take that as an invitation to explore that?
Yeah, but sure they did. But after about 5 minutes or seconds, they get bored. It's too much work. And they just want to do what they want to do. And they just go back to the way they are. That's really good, Robert. That's why you're old. And that's why you're this and that. And I just look at them and say, in my heart, and that's why you're screwed up.
Yeah.
And you're a pain in the ass. And if you get your act together, this would be a happier boat. But I don't want to say that. I'm thinking about my thinking. And so I just smile at them. All good, no problem. And they think I'm withdrawing all the time because I'm quieter and quieter. But really, I'm trying to do my big four and just get through the circumstance without engaging. And if I am going to do anything, I'm going to say something kind. And I'm going to say forgiving. I knew when I got on the boat, I had a choice of who I was going to be.
Yeah.
Meaning, am I going to be a leader or am I going to be a follower? And so I chose when I got on the boat that I was going to be a leader. And the leader was not by talking a lot. The leader was going to be by actions, because they're going to watch you, because you're never more than 2 feet away from somebody for 43 days. I'm sleeping next to them. I'm eating with them. I'm rowing next to them. I'm taking a crap in a bucket next to them. Everything's there. So if I keep my smile on and keep my rhythm of who I am, not let them get to me, then I can influence. And pretty soon I become the chaplain of the boat. They're coming to me, can you solve this beef? Can you solve this beef? What about this? What do you think? Captain comes to me, and Robert, understand, console.
Yep.
So you have a choice at your job, or you have a choice in your marriage. You have a choice who you want to be, and are you an asset or a liability? And is your demeanor helping, or is your demeanor hurting what you're trying to project?
Oh, mate, I love that. There's so many things there. Just to come back to the boat, just from some logistics, because you said that there was groups of 3. So 3 on the port side, 3 on the starboard side, and I think from memory there was an aisle between you, and you do a shift on port, a shift on starboard, and then rotate into the cabin. Is that correct?
Yeah, 3 hours. You do an hour and a half on port, hour and a half on starboard, like you see the Olympic boats, but we put a aisle because we have to get up and down it.
Yep.
Hour and a half, 3 hours off. And you do that 4 times a day.
And so is it the same, just so out of curiosity, is it the same group of 3 that you always with, or do the 3s mix up?
No, you always sleep with them. You always report with them. You're always starboard with them. You sleep with them. And so there's 4 groups of 3 that just rotate.
Rotate through. Got it. Okay, that's a really intense period of time, of course, because you're in such close quarters, and as you say, it's easy for those things to unravel a little bit. So it does take some discipline, a lot of discipline. And I want to talk to you about those big 4, because you just mentioned it briefly a moment ago, and I think this is a really key point. So, ladies and gents, I'd really encourage you to get a pen and paper, because I know Robert's about to share some terrific wisdom. So, firstly, what is the big 4 designed to do? And then secondarily, could you just explain just what those big 4 things are to help achieve the things?
Let me give a picture first.
Yep.
If a kid's sliding down a rope under a helicopter into a firefight,
yep,
and the anxiety and panic releases his heart rate and the chemicals, all of his training goes out the window. Oh my God, oh my God. So what we teach our special ops kids, which you can teach civilians or anybody, is number 1, the way you control your heart rate is through breathing. And so deep breathing through the nose and expanding your chest is better than 10 panting like an animal.
Yep.
So when you are deep breathing this way, it takes work and it's not natural.
Yep.
So when that happens, you cannot be thinking any other thoughts. Let's say there's a ticker tape or something, a loop going in your head.
Yeah.
That loop stop for you, because you're now thinking about your breathing, not thinking about I'm going to die or get shot or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I lower my heart rate.
Yeah.
So I get my heart rate. Today we're doing sprints on the water, and I have them at the very end put their hands on the side of the gunnels and go, and I challenge them, can you get your heart rate back to normal in 6 breaths?
Oh, wow.
Versus, all over the place. And we train our guys that you can get your heart rate down quick, just drop it by giving it the right amount of air and expanding. So it does 2 things. 1, it makes it, you have to come in control of yourself to want to do the box breathing or to do the deep breathing, because it's not normal or natural. When that happens, you stop doing the other things that are in your head, and you know that at the end of that, you want to do the second thing. And so the first one is get your breathing to get you right. So when you're watching an MMA fight, the guys are standing in the corner now with their arms up before they sit down. And they're getting control before they sit down versus sitting down in the corner, slumped over, chest pushed in to dying over there. Open them up, get them this way, and then challenge them, get control.
Right.
Get emotional control. And then recalibrate. We have them look out here, and then we have them move to single focus. Breathe, take in your surroundings, understand it. Even if the bullets are flying, then focus back to your job. With us, we say, do your deep breathing, and then the second thing you do real quick is do your positive self-talk.
Okay.
And when you talk out loud, you can't be thinking inward anything but what you're talking out loud. So what you're talking out loud stops the negative loop in your head. I'm dying. This was terrible. I don't like this. Because all you're doing now is talking. When you're talking, it's all of a sudden you'll find yourself going, and you have about an 8-second moment to break whatever you were thinking to reboot neuroplasticity with what you want to think. First one is breathing. Take emotional, mental control of yourself. Number 2, talk out loud positive things. Wire yourself for the positive versus the negative. 3, we do visualization. And the visualization is we think about the end goal, the end product, what it looks like to complete the task in a successful way. Which means, again, you can't be scared, can't be freaking out. You can't be about how you feel. I'm hurting, or I got a broken leg or something. You're thinking about this other goal. And then number 4, you break it up into mini goals. So whatever the task is, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Well, you say, this is difficult. So these kids today are rowing a 2,000-meter race. So we break that up to the start, and then the start to the 500 mark. And then what they're going to think in their brain, by the way, they're breathing from the 1,000 or the 500 mark to the 1,000 mark. And then we have them do something out loud again to get them ready for the 500 mark to the 1,500 mark, 500, 1,000, 15. And then we have them take another deep breath while they're rowing, knowing that we're going to get ready to do this last charge. And so we break everything up into bite-sized pieces versus this overwhelming thing. So when I do 50 hours nonstop, I can't do 50 hours nonstop. But when I did 50 hours nonstop, I could do the next 30 minutes. I could do the next 15 minutes. And as I would talk to myself, I would get myself through the next challenge, and my emotions are up and down. I can make it, I can't make it. I'm overwhelmed, I'm not overwhelmed. This moment's too big for me. No, it's not too big for me. All this stuff, I take control of it. Just get me 15 more minutes, 20 minutes. I got through the first day. I got 6 hours to go, blah, blah, blah. And you finally do it in bite sizes, and you're not overwhelmed. Those 4 things we do over and over and over again.
Where did you learn that? I know you've got a background as a pararescueman. Is that something you learned in your training, or is it something you've accumulated over the years? How did you come to that? Because it's what I like to call simple but not easy, and requires constant practice and repetition. How did you come about that?
I really didn't think about that a lot till I started coaching at SEALFIT.
Yeah.
Because Mark Devine, SEALFIT was a CrossFit gym that the Navy said, Mark, I'm going to give you a contract to start a program to get the Navy SEAL kids, before they come in the military, ready for what we're going to do to them in Hell Week and in BUDS.
Yep.
BUDS. So Mark said, oh, okay. And he started this program where all these kids would be pre-BUDS, and they would come and he would train them.
Yeah.
And he would train them like martial arts. He'd train them in breathing and meditating and envisioning and all those kind of things. We have a 95% success rate that our kids, if they make it through our program, will make it through BUDS.
Yeah, wow.
Where the Navy only had a 30% success rate of their training getting their kids through BUDS. And so we said, it's not physical, it's the mental game. And if we get these kids to get in the mental game of understanding them and their bodies and their panic and their anxiety, and we train them in panic, we train them in anxiety, so when they get into it, it's not a big deal. They've already made pain and anxiety a friend of theirs, because we've said we're going to take you into that zone now where you're going to be miserable for you to think and act like leaders. And then we take them into a morning or an afternoon or an evening session where we're going to crush you, But this is how, with the Big Four, you're going to get through what we're going to do to you. And we train them, and we train them, and we train them. So when they get in the field, it's no big thing. They're used to having those overwhelming moments and saying, how do we eat this one bite at a time? We're never overwhelmed. So you play like you train. And if you never train for that panic and that anxiety, that stress, that miserableness, then it overwhelms you. And that's why in most times in pararescue, Army Ranger, Green Beret, Raider, Recon, Marines, and us pararescue combat control, the good guys all quit because they've never not been not good.
Oh, wow. Okay. And they're not used to failing.
They never fail. They're the poster child of everything. They come in studly and stuff. But when they get rocked, because we make sure everybody gets rocked. If you're a good runner, then you're not going to be a good runner by the time we're done with you. We're going to bring you back down. If you're a good swimmer, we're going to make everybody even.
Yeah.
So no is a hot shot. Can you work as a team as you're all overwhelmed? And then we take them in that pressure cooker, that fragility. It's like one of the instructors says, we take a wine glass and put it in a box and we shake it. And we want to know if you'll break. And immaturity will, they quit. And so we train them. We're going to shake that wine glass in that box, but you need to know what we're doing. You go, no problem, got this. Because we've trained them to handle, like marriage can do that to you too, or kids can do that, or a bad boss can do that, or a next door neighbor can rock you away that you're not used to. If you're not in control, you'll react to do something stupid.
So you made a really interesting point, and that was about the importance of training. And one of the things that I think about, I have a background as an ex-Navy dentist, and some of my friends had been through in Australia we call them clearance divers, similar to Navy SEALs. What I wanted to ask you about was training, because you spoke about training and preparing for the event that's going to come. One of the things that I've observed in business is that we are often not training enough. We're kind of getting onto the field of play without having done the training, because we go into day-to-day work, which is almost the competitive environment, if you will, without taking the time to train. So I wanted to ask you, because I know we're talking about this with sports and special ops and all the rest of it. So just to put that into a business context, how does that training look from a business perspective? What do you see successful business owners doing? Because I know you work with successful business owners as well. How do they incorporate this into their day-to-day?
I find that most companies don't have good culture.
Yeah. And
it starts off with hiring. And if you don't tell them what the culture is going to be, they bring their culture to your organization, right? Because everybody has a culture of how they do stuff. Late, good, excellent, shoddy, excuse-minded, whatever it is. And if you don't set the culture up front for the expectation, then you bring 50 people in with 50 different cultures and their way they worked at the last job or the last 5 jobs. Then you just find this disconnect and this tension where people just don't treat each other right, don't honor each other right, don't talk the way they should to each other, communicate, serve. It's all for yourself. And so if you don't do that, if you don't get your business squared away, where you lay down, this is how we act, this is how we respond. Like I was doing a job in San Jose, and it was a security group, and they wanted me to come in to bring together 5 corporate offices into one culture, and each of the 5 offices wanted to sell their hamburger differently, right? Oh, wow. They all said, this is the way we do a McDonald's hamburger in Seattle, and this is how we do a McDonald's hamburger in Sacramento. We get 2 pickles here, we get 3 pickles up there, we get no mustard down here, and we're all selling the same widget, right? The same thing. And I go and I see all these cubicles, and I see these people in cubicles with their headsets on and stuff. And I come to realize that all they do is email and text each other. And I say to this lady who's got a wall here, a cubicle with another lady over there, with another lady over there, I say, do you ever get up and just go talk to them, or do you always have to send a text message? We send text messages. Well, why don't you just get up and come find out we don't like each other? So we endure each other, and we just do what we have to do, the basics, to not have to really get interactive. And then the clicks go, over here, and click goes over here, and click drink over here, and this group goes over here, and they're polarized. So if you don't work on what makes a successful team or a successful culture, you're always scrambling, trying to prop things up because people they're not on the same page. That's why when you go into our military academy, they say, I don't care whatever you are, once you're in here, you're going to be an Armyman. Yeah. And this is what West Point demands of you. I don't care what your background, what you've done before. When you get out of here 4 years or 5 years, you're not going to be whatever you were. You're going to be an Army person thinking like we want you to think and acting like we want you to act. Got it? And they go, big guys, I guess. And then this transformation happens of what's expected and accountability. And so business is a team. And most businesses don't act like a team. They act like a management structure.
Oh, that's a writer down. That's something to write down, ladies and gents. Most businesses act like a management structure, not as a team. That is a real pearl of wisdom. Just expand on that, please.
You can say, I thought that up. Someone said one time.
No, that's definitely Robert Owens. Can you just expand on that? Because I think that's a really key point, and I just want to make sure we explore that, because I think that's a really important distinction.
I, maybe like you and others listening, I'm fascinated with teams. I'm fascinated with good teams. I'm fascinated with how adding a different coach can take a last place team to the first place in a year or two. I'm always interested in how they take components out and put components in, and why teams in some cities stay at the bottom forever, culture. Yep. So when I get into businesses, I look at the employees, and I look at the president, and I look at the structure, and my first assessment is this thing running like a team, or is it running as just a management, whether it's a V from the bottom up or the angle down the pyramid this way, power structure, are they acting out of their silos and their job descriptions versus are we acting like everyone is in this together and we care for all of us the same, the catcher, the pitcher, the batsman, whatever it is, are we one? And most of the time it starts with the leader on top, and it's not. He does his job and he expects other people to do their job, and there's a disconnect. I am one that's big on servant leadership, where wherever you are, you serve the people around you. You just don't use them, and you just don't treat them like they're objects, but you treat them like they're people. I was just amazed. There was this girl that contacted me from Ireland, and I said, what's up? And she said, well, I want to tell you about my management thing. I said, what's that? She said, well, my husband died. And when he died, we had our house burned down. And when that happened, the company she worked for said, take as much time as you want off with full pay. We just like you. We support you. We're for you. And she was down. She was maybe middle management. She was down, but they cared for her so much. And the culture of the organization was such that she stayed away for a year. And she said, I can't come back yet. My kids, this and that. And they said, take your time. And what was noted with the company was the company put people first.
Yeah, wow.
Over profits. Because happy people and team people will produce and stay and be loyal longer than just people coming in, people going out, people trying to get their raise, people not doing the thing. Everyone's living for themselves. And it starts with the top. And you can smell it on a leader. I was just in San Diego doing I had 50 business owners last Friday, and I gave them 10 insights from 30 years of business consulting. And I'm old, and they're younger, And as I began to share these points, people just stared at me like I was a foreign object. Like I said, maturity does not come with age. It comes with the acceptance of responsibility. And that's why some of you are more mature when you were 17 than others are still at 70. And they just look at you, like, what's that? I said, show me what responsibility you're taking for who, for what. And we went into this whole thing. Well, are your employees taking responsibility? They're always blaming others or whatever it is, You get these rabbit trails. Anyway, it's fun when they come up and say, wow, I've never heard this stuff before. I said, because you're trying to build a business. But what you really ought to be doing is building a team. And if you build a team, that team will be that business and will do well for you because they're excited to play the game with you. I like my teammates, and I'm concerned about my teammates, and the upper people are concerned about them as well. So that's just a philosophy that I have that works from the military. It's all about team. There's no individuals. It's all about team.
Robert, there's, again, tons and tons of pearls of wisdom in that. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about team and when team comes together. And just to go back to the rowing metaphor, with those young men you've been coaching, helping them with their breathing, helping them with their mindset and mental resilience and toughness, which, by the way, you have been described by Mark Devine from SEALFIT as the fittest and most mentally tough 71-year-old going around on the planet, which is a big...
He's lying.
No, he's not.
Lying.
Because that was also repeated by Joe Senna from Spartans, right? And so there's a couple of very well-known, well-respected figures giving you that title as well. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about when team comes together and how do you feel in flow state. And I wanted to just talk about rowing for a second because that's a metaphor I understand because I was involved with it. My experience with rowing is you could feel the boat come together. You couldn't always describe it, but you could feel it.
Correct.
And it was a sense of oneness. And in the boat that we were river rowers as well, and then lake, so flat water. But the boat would sit steady as a rock. There was no flopping side to side. I was coxing, so I was, in that case, I had hopefully steered a fairly straight course. But we used to get these air bubbles kind of just under the boat, and the boat would almost sing to us. It was bizarre to say that out loud. And all those little things were able to be observed, but the feeling was really hard to describe. And I'm wondering if you've got a better way of describing that than I do, because I'm at a little bit of a loss for words to describe that.
The thing that people hear about, it's finding that flow state.
Yeah.
When you find that place where everything is completely in sync and they're breathing together, they're exhaling together, which means when you're breathing, deep breathing, you have to tighten your core. And when you're tight core, you can pull with strength, and everything's different when your core is tight.
Yeah.
Which is the way you get your core tight is not but and lock it in place. Deep breaths, good oxygenation. Anyway, we work on that, every day. What did you feel? What happened when we did this? We did 7 different exercises this morning. Square blade, feathered blade, blah, 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 all this stuff, And getting them to finally say, oh, we got it. We felt it, And what'd you feel? It just happened, And you just go, oh, can we reproduce it next week against USC or UCLA, all the stuff going. So it's really fun to get the kids involved, to get them thinking about that flow state and where they play in that. And it all starts with their mechanics. And for us, it all starts with their breathing and sitting up straight. Everything, the balance of the boat, everything goes from there.
So I wanted to ask you just really briefly, because you also did the 777 challenge, and I'll ask you to, in a moment, just articulate what the 7-7 challenge is. But where I want to get to is we've spoken about making sure that we have the self-mastery, some self-discipline. But I also want to ask you about what happens when things go wrong. Because at that point, it's easy for our thoughts and feelings to kind of carry us away. And I suspect you're going to come back to breathing in a second. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how to get back on track when life invariably slaps us around the head. And that happens to all of us. We all go through our situations in life. It's not always peaches and cream. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the 777, the 777, and then also about bouncing back from adversity, if I could.
The 777, many of you would know, this is going to be played later, but Boston Marathon was this weekend. And our 777 is the World Marathon Challenge. It's 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. So you have 168 hours for the world record guys to knock out 7 marathons. And so the thing is the travel. You don't know, with storms and flying and immigration and stuff. So you do 2 marathons the first day. You do the Antarctic Marathon. And this is in January, so it's warm where you guys are. It's sunny in Antarctica. Yeah. You do that, and then as soon as you land back in Cape Town, you start running again and knock out Cape Town. So you do 2 the first day. Probably the first 20 hours you do 2. And that's to give you some cushion so when you start to fly. and immigration. From there, you go to Perth, ran around your rugby stadium in Perth from 10 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, whatever it is. Then you get back on a plane. We went to Dubai, and we ran another night one in Dubai, and then we ran over to Lisbon, or went to Lisbon, which was a short flight, a 4-hour flight in the rain, because that was January in the upper hemisphere, and so it's rain and cold up there. And you knock that thing out with an all-night rain marathon, and then you fly to Cartagena, Colombia, which is great because it's a 12-hour flight, and you eat and everything on the flight, and you sleep, and you get off, and you run whenever you land, which was another night marathon. And we got done with that marathon about 3 in the morning. No one went to bed. We got on a plane at 6, and we went to Miami, 2 hours away, and ran that one in the middle of the day, which was stupid because it's hot. And you knock out 7 to try to make it within the 168-hour window. That's that point. There are the 2-hour, 250-hour marathoners, the 3 hours, the 4 hour, the 5 hour, the 6 hour people. We had 15 hours. We had 35 men and 15 women. I was the oldest again. No, there was one guy older than me, and he was really good. Anyway, it was a challenge again to test myself mentally, how I could respond under extreme fatigue and possibly pain. And so I signed up, and people said, "That's stupid." I said, "I know. That's why people do things, like Everest." I want to challenge myself and was able to do that.
What did you discover that you might not have known about yourself beforehand?
I broke my marathons. I tried to do between a 5 and a 6 hour marathon because I didn't care how fast I went, because I had another one the next day or a few hours away. So I would try to work my mind where I would give my mind opportunities to think on different things. So in one dresser drawer, I would pull that out in my mind at the 1 hour mark, and I'd start working on a speech. And I'd work on the speech, get my points and stuff that I was going to have to speak when I got back.
Yep.
And maybe after an hour, I'd shut that and I'd pull out another dresser drawer in my mind. And I would do this where I'm going to take my kids on vacation, what lessons I want to learn when I take my kids on the next set of vacations. I took kids with me all over the place. Most of my kids went to 20 nations with me.
Oh, wow.
And so I tried to raise world kids, not American kids. I wanted them to have confidence to go live anywhere if America blows up, which could happen. So, blah, blah, blah. And then the third hour, I'd pull out some other topic in my brain. So I'd go through the event, not just running a thing and not just thinking about my body, but I'd be thinking about my breathing, and I'd be thinking about my gait, how I'm moving, and then I'd be thinking about topics, and time would fly by. So pretty soon, if I could get 5, let's say, drawers out, work on 5 different things, I felt like I was really at work the whole time and successful versus just enduring what I was feeling.
How do you find it's best to deal with adversity given the things you've done? You've done a lot of extreme things. You've obviously had a long, distinguished military career as well. You've raised kids. You've done a lot of different things. And throughout life, I'm sure, like the rest of us, there's been some things that haven't always gone to plan.
Sure.
How have you dealt with that?
First, being 71, I think back how I handled the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and now in my 70s. Second of all, I think about how I handled my kids. Or I'm divorced and I'm remarried, and I had a 30-year marriage, and during the recession of 2009, lost everything. And my wife said, "If you're any kind of a man, you'd make this work." And I said, "I don't know how to make this work. I've never lost like this before." And people said, "Robert, you're done. You're cooked. I mean, you're going to lose your house." We built a house for $2.5 million US, and it went on the market for $700,000.
Oh gosh!
And that was all of our life savings. We bought, sold, flipped houses to get our retirement up to a place so we could sell that thing and then live on it. We lost everything, and that's one other thing. But yeah, I've had my ups and my downs. And my second thought to you is that some things take longer to heal or to get through than others. And so there's not a formula for just getting through betrayal or getting through poor relationship, whatever it is, or whatever it is. And some people are better forgivers at certain things than other things, or getting through. They can handle certain kind of pain, but they can't do well in other kinds of pain. And so I found that looking back over the years, I handled different things differently at different periods of my life.
Okay.
When I had testosterone, I was a little bit more fiery.
Yeah.
But as I mellow out into the grandfather thing, I have more bandwidth, to nod my head and say, I get it, and you'll live, don't sweat the small stuff, But I think for me, the part that I've been trying to do is I've been trying to mature as a human being to not overreact or underreact at all in my life. And so that's taken me some real self-discipline to not underreact and not overreact. And that means I have to think about my thinking.
Yeah.
Think about the emotions that are in me. And sometimes I just need to take a long walk. And sometimes I just need to go surfing and stare at the sunset. And sometimes I just need to go for a run or do something just to refresh, reboot. And so I've been working and struggling at this all my life, but I have confidence because my father told me at 96 he was struggling with it all of his life too.
The human condition, right?
Yeah, so get used to it. And one of the great truths was you had problems.
Yes.
Right? You have problems, and guess what's in the future?
More problems.
More problems. And so if you don't learn to embrace problems and you run from them, you deal with your issues or your issues will deal with you. That's going to happen. Either you deal with your drugs and alcohol, you deal with your anger issues, you deal with your bitterness, either you deal with your stuff or your stuff's going to come back in spades and deal with you. So I learned early on, I don't want to compound going through by my stupidity of doing or saying something that I'm going to regret. And so I learned to get quieter and quieter over the years, to take 10 seconds and breathe and just think, and I really want to say this. It would feel really good, but I'm going to have to say I'm sorry, and I don't want to say I'm sorry, so it's not worth feeling really good for a moment, so I'm not going to say it.
I really love that. I have been guilty of that in the past, particularly in my 20s. I'd say things that felt good in the moment, and then I would have to go back and apologize. And you're right, it doesn't make you feel any better.
No.
And I think one of the things, it's interesting, Robert. I turned 50 a year or two ago. I'm soon to be 52. But I remember when I turned 50, it was one of those moments where zero birthdays, you tend to be a bit more reflective anyway. But I remember thinking at that particular time that I had noticed that my priorities were shifting. I noticed that I was looking at my current set of problems with 50 years of experience and perspective compared to what I might have had in my 20s and 30s. And so I think hopefully, fingers crossed, with a bit of luck, that equates to perhaps a little bit of gathering of wisdom. And I guess what I'm trying to articulate and extract from this conversation is for those people that might be in their 20s and 30s who are still learning, growing, developing, maturing like the rest of us, then there'll be some perspective to say, let's not overreact, let's not underreact, let's try and get the reaction appropriate for the circumstances. Let's think about our thinking. Let's not let our emotions get the better of us. Let's be in control of ourselves. Let's be mindful of what comes out of our mouth. And if we can do all those things at the earliest stage possible, hopefully, as you say, we're going to be compounding good things rather than letting those other things come back to bite us on the backside, as the expression goes. I think if I've summarized that, is that about right? Yeah,
and I just think that I've also learned that the things that are most painful that I go through will have these huge lessons that I'll learn from. So the problem always has a payoff on the other side. And so if I can keep that in mind, that what I'm going through, it may be significant, but I'm going to be richer. I'm going to be smarter. I'm going to be more insightful. I'm going to have more confidence when I get through this thing. And I'll give you an example. And your listeners would sort of like this one probably. So one of the deals I did was, remember the movie 300?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
About the Spartans fighting the Persians in Thermopylae. Anyway, there's a movie called the 300. And the legend has it that the Spartans went from Sparta to Thermopylae on the other coast, 238 miles in 8 days. and then fought their battle where everybody died. King Leonidas died for the Greek city-states to be an example of what they should be doing versus being cowards. So we decided to go, Navy SEAL guys and pararescue guys, we decided to do a warrior run, 238 miles from Sparta to Thermopylae, to see what it would, if we could do that in 8 days across Greece. The first day climbing out of Sparta was a 5-mile incline up, 5-hour incline up, and then a 4-hour incline down. So we did mountain the whole time.
Yep. Up
ski resorts, down to the Corinthian Sea, up ski resorts, up through valleys, and all over. Just stupid. One of the more stupid things I've done is this race. Anyway, I blew going downhill. My feet were swollen from the heat, and I popped both big toenails on the first day. Popped right off. And so as I'm running downhill, I'm just pounding in the front of my boot. My shoe just finally both go bing. And I went, wow, my feet are really sore. I mean, I pull them off. There's just blood, blah, blah, blah. But there's blisters all around my feet. So I have deep blisters. And as I wake up the next morning, my feet are stuck to my sheets and the ooze is coming out and I can't walk. So when I try to wake up and go to the toilet, I can't walk across to the toilet. So I just, because my feet felt like I was walking on glass, broken glass. So I put my feet down and I just pressed on them. And I said, I'm going into this pain and I'm going to just go through this pain. I got to pee. First of all, I wasn't being heroic. I got to pee. And so I'm walking on this thing and I get over there and I sit down. I'm not going to stand up. I'm going to sit down and pee, because my feet hurt. So I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to get back over the bed? What am I going to do? How am I going to wrap these feet up? So I'm planning, I get back and I walk on this broken glass, these bloody feet, blistered feet, and I finally get back. And then I have to make the decision to put the sock on and stick it back in that stupid shoe because I got another 30 miles to do on that thing today. And so that took some time. And then walking downstairs, there wasn't an elevator. Walking downstairs on these feet, feeling like I'm walking on glass. But I found that the longer I was on the feet, the less they hurt. Pain would subside.
Okay.
The pain would, and then it would just sort of dull as you just worked it. So by the time I got to the bus, and by the time the bus dropped us off where the start of that run was that day, second day, I was walking slowly. I was gingerly pigeon-toed like, ooh, 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 like that, right? And then I just began to speed up my walk, and more my feet deadened until I found that if I would just stay moving on those stupid feet, I wouldn't feel any pain.
Yeah,
but
wow.
If I'd stop 5 minutes, boom, they would come right back. So I did that for 8 days, where blisters on top of blisters on top of blisters, and blood this and blood that, wrapping these things up every day, learning the lesson that I should have brought bigger shoes or more shoes, or I should have planned for the heat to blow up my feet. Learned this thing, got through the 238 miles, just miserable. But so I get to the 777. Now, how in the world what am I going to learn? Well, what I did was I brought a pair of 10.5s, 11s, 11.5s, and 12.5 pairs of shoes. So when I get into 777, your feet swell up in the air, and then in the cold, they would contract or Antarctica. Then the next day was 90 degrees above. The feet would swell from flying, then stick them in a shoe, then run in the heat with them. And I would take my different pairs of shoes with me to the start line. And by the end of this thing, I was finishing my 7 marathons in size 12s. And I started in size 10.5. And all the other guys had bloody, blistered feet because I only brought one pair of shoes for the whole week. And so the thing that I hated, that I didn't want to go through, served me so well later on, because I'd learned, and I have a picture with me with one black shoe on and one red shoe on. One foot was 11.5, one foot was a 10. They were swelling at different times. People look at me. I have all my shoes there for that night, thinking, I think I'll do this. But they said, where'd you get that? I went, you don't want to know. The pain I went through to learn that lesson. Well, that's life. You learn things, you go through tough things. On the other side, you get hopefully a little bit wiser and you figure things out. So I have people when they're going through the pain, losing a child, sickness, it's miserable. There's nothing good about this, but we're going to make it. And on the backside, you're going to have insight and wisdom that you've never thought you'd have before, and empathy, and you'll be a bigger person. I hate for you to have to go through it this way, but all of us, when we go through pain, if we do it right, get on the backside and go, all right, that's not going to happen again. And I learned my lesson on this, or I should have done this, and I won't let that happen again. Well, hopefully we learn. So that's that thing about embracing this stuff and going through it and growing.
Robert, you have got an incredible background, and I could talk to you for days and days and days on end. But for those people who want to find out more about what you do, first thing I'd say is please go and get a copy of Robert's book called Beyond Average, which has the subtitle of Developing Yourself Through the 20 Times Principle. I've got that book. I've read that book. It's a tremendous read. So, ladies and gents,
what did you like?
I liked your stories about going through the Pararescueman training. I really liked that early background story and the toughness and perhaps the two coaches you had the in the early days when you were swimming and water polo, and the faith that some of those coaches placed in you served you well.
By mentoring is so important because people will believe in you when you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And if you can find those people who believe in you when you don't know that if you can or what, it'll carry you. And I'm so grateful for men in my life who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself.
I really enjoyed those stories. I've been really fortunate in my life, Robert, to have had some really great mentors, usually from older men actually, who've taken me under their wing and kind of nurtured me and shared their life experience with me and perhaps guided me through some of my own challenges. And so I really resonated with that part of the book very, very deeply indeed. And I see you actually doing that again with this work you're doing with the cruise and other things, the rowing. So I think it's a really wonderful thing. But I'd really encourage everyone to get a copy of that book. And obviously people find their own bits within the book that they really resonate with. But that was the bit that I really enjoyed. If we were to kind of encapsulate it, just a couple of final thoughts for the listeners today to take away with them, some practical things, some pearls of wisdom. What would be the things that you'd like people to take out of our conversation today? If you reflect on the things we've spoken about, what are the things you think, if I could whisper in your ear, this is what I'd really love you to hear from me?
You can do and be more than you think you can.
Yeah.
You have to choose to grow up. It's a choice. You can keep your excuses, suck your thumb. I tell these guys, some of you act like you still have your diaper on. And nappies are really sweet on little babies. And you put the powder on them and put the new diaper on. It's cute. But there's a time when you stop wearing your diaper and you change your own pants.
Yeah.
And so there's some adults that are still wearing their diapers. They're still wearing their issues, whether it's sexual abuse or drug and alcohol. My father didn't love me or my mother was this or that. Okay, it's all real. I'm adopted. I don't know my parents. I have bad feet, disabled child. Blah, blah, blah. We all got stuff. But there's a time when you say, I need to shed that and grow up. That's not going to shape my life unless I want it to. And I call that change your diaper. It's okay. It's poopy diaper. But there's a time, if you don't change it, you'll get a red rash and you'll make yourself and others miserable because you've never dealt with the stuff that you're supposed to deal with because you refuse to grow up. And so I work with adults and kids all the time, and I say, that's a terrible story. When are you going to let it go? When are you going to say, I'm not going to let that shape my life? I mean, I have guys that still hear their dads screaming at them. Their dads are dead. And their dads are still cursing them from the grave with the words that are stuck in their head. Yeah. And my dad said this, my dad didn't do that, my dad this, that, or my mom. And I say, they're dead, they're gone. You can change. You don't have to be wired. Cut the wires in the computer, and start over again. Neuroplasticity. Let's breathe. Let's grow. No, I don't want to grow. I mean, this is who I am. Well, then suck your thumb, and get what you get, because deal with your stuff or your stuff's going to deal with you. And I would encourage people to begin to say, I do want to grow and I do want to challenge myself and I want to do difficult things, because comfortability will not make you happy. What makes you happy is getting personal wins in your life by taking things on that are difficult, whether it's stop smoking 20 cigarettes a day and go to 15, or stop eating that donut, or stop being mad or whatever it is to get a personal win. And once you start getting wins where I did it, I didn't think it was possible, but I chose to ask for help, or I chose to walk in humility, or I chose to shed 15 pounds by getting help, or I chose to, whatever it is, wins breed wins and losses breed losses. And so I would encourage them to say to themselves, I want to not have excuses. I want to take myself on. Why? Because I want to be better and I want to change. And there's two people at least living inside you. The person that you're living, and then the person who lives inside who says, I wish I could be that, or I would like that, or I see that, or why couldn't I do that? And there's the pain of the two people dialoguing every day. They're driving a car, I'm not. They're looking good, I'm not. They're accomplishing, I'm not. I wish I could. And the answer is, you can. And you show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. So birds of a feather flock together, and winners hang with winners. Losers hang with losers. And excuse-minded people look for other excuse-minded people to give them the excuses that they need so they don't have to do the hard thing. And so growing is a challenge for all of us, but it's a choice. You're not stuck. You're not a victim. You can change every day, a little bit by little bit. But mentorship helps. Humility helps. Being open to change and growing. My last thought is, every time you go to another level in your life, you'll lose a bunch of your friends.
Yeah.
And most of you don't want the pain, relational pain, of losing those friends because you like them, but they're holding you back. Like a guy stops drinking and his family's a drinking family. I'll lose my family. Well, then I guess you have to lose your family for a while. But if you want to grow, you're going to have to deal with your drinking issue. And you can't do it by having them in your ear all the time. You have to say, Mom and Dad, I got to get away because I want to grow and change, not be like this and then my kids be like this. I'm going to have to make the decisions to separate myself and get with winning, accomplishing, growing, no excuse kind of people who will press me and grow me. And people don't want the relational pain to grow. And you have to grow. You have to do it. So there's lots of things like that I feel for everyone that's watching. I get it. And we get it. And the older you get, the more you get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can deal now or deal later, Pay now, play later, or play now, don't deal, and you'll be paying for a long time.
Do you know, I heard a great quote, just to wrap a thought up on that, there's a great quote by Jim Rohn. We must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
Great.
I really love that. And I was driving down the road. Oh, this is going back a few months ago. My daughter's a gymnast, a competitive gymnast, and I was meant to do something, didn't want to do it. From the back seat, I heard pain of discipline or pain of regret. Dad, I went, oh, dang, you got me. Okay, all right, here we go. Game on.
That's right.
And so this is the gymnast who's got the Russian and Chinese coaches kind of training her, and she's got that discipline, and I appreciated the lesson, and I really appreciate all the lessons you've shared with us today, Rob. You've been, as always, wonderfully generous, wonderfully insightful. And from all of us here, mate, I'm super grateful to you for taking the time.
You bet. It's wonderful to speak with you. And I've been down to Australia probably, 5-7 times. I did Ironman Western Australia in Busselton.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, a long time ago. I used to speak a lot in Australia and New Zealand. And so since the pandemic, I'm not doing much of anything, but I'd love to come back down sometime, whether it's the Gold Coast or, Hobart or Perth, all over the place. Or I think it's a great country.
Well, thank you very much. And we would love to have you here. And let's talk further about that, because I think there's something we could work on.
Everyone of you listening, the way you can help, please, is by now contacting our savvy dentist here and saying what you got from this. Tell him the insights that you're taking away, like that guy is crazy, should have shot him, don't ever have him back on again, or that one-liner was good or something. But please give feedback now to Jesse and tell him what you liked about it, what you would like more of. Like he can choose the speakers on this thing, and you give your feedback, and he would really appreciate to know what you're thinking about stuff like this. So please do that. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Robert. You're a good man. Appreciate that. And ladies and gents, please do let us know. As Robert said, it means the world to us to hear what's making a difference for you, and we'd love to get that. So thank you once again, mate, and we'll talk soon.
All right, see you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast. For more episodes, go to drjessiegreen.com/savvydentist. And to discover how to build a high-performance dental practice, visit drjessiegreen.com and download the free report.